Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap. This time, wrapping up the game against Collingwood on the weekend, and joining me tonight, I have the lovely Nikki New. How are you, Nikki?
I'm not too bad, staying warm.
Staying warm? Well, you're doing better than me. I'm freezing. I've got about 7 layers on and a yellow T-shirt.
Oh, my yellow T-shirt didn't fit.
What the hell was that guy talking about on the boards today, talking about how everyone should have wanted to... What an idiot. Lose some weight, he reckons.
Yeah, bit of fat shaming going on there, considering that most of us didn't put the T-shirts on because we had huge, big, puffy jackets. So the T-shirts were just not going to fit over the top of that.
Come on, Kirky. You're better than that, son.
Yep. He is much better than that normally.
Yeah, so interesting weekend of footy this weekend, actually. A couple of big results, a couple of teams probably dropped out of the race for finals contention. So before we go any further, let's talk about the weekend's results. And on Thursday night, we had Free Kick Hawthorn, Nikki.
They know how to win.
Free Kick Hawthorn, 11 goals, 9, 75 to 10, the Swans 70, Hawks up by 5. Really, despite those contentious 50s, the Swans should have put them away. And it really highlights the value of having an attacking mindset like we have. The Swans kept Hawthorn in it, and Hawthorn, as we know how to win those games, and Shawnee Burgoyne is an absolute jet.
Yeah. He's still one of the premier mids in the comp. Just knows when to go, how to find the ball, and he's so hard to catch.
Oh, and just so clutch. I mean, that goal that he kicked towards the end there, just a clutch goal, and really showed his class. And good trading by the Power. Friday night, Geelong had a struggle, but ended up getting up over the Dockers. 11 goals, 12, 78 to Fremantle, 9 goals, 761. So the Cats by 17. Didn't look terribly convincing, although I thought Fremantle on their home deck made a pretty good account of themselves.
I went to watch Ghostbusters instead.
Crikey, I don't know. I can't actually pick what's worth out of those two. Bloody hell.
No, Ghostbusters actually was quite fun.
Oh, have you seen the original?
No.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, Bill Murray. You can't replace Bill Murray. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You haven't seen Chris Hemsworth.
No.
Seriously, that man is so funny.
Next time, the next thing they're going to do a remake of Stripes or something or other, and that's when I just stop going to the movies.
Nah, they won't do that one.
Well, if they're going to do Ghostbusters, anyway, footy show.
I am a screen and media major. I can argue on this all night.
All right, yeah, no, God, no, I don't want to. Macca's not here to save me tonight, so I'm going to be very nice. Just be gentle. Saturday, we had the Tigers getting up in a hard-fought game over the Bombers. The Bombers really showing a good account of themselves lately, despite their ladder position and obvious problems. Richmond getting up 16 goals, 6-102 to Essendon, 11 goals, 17-83. We had the Bulldogs smacking the Suns predictably. The Suns would be glad when this season's over, I reckon. The Bullies getting up 15 goals, 17-107 to 8 goals, 11-59, doing their percentage no harm. The big result on Saturday was the Power getting up at Etihad over a very disappointing and tailing off Kangaroos. The Power 16 goals, 9-105 to the Kangaroos 10 goals, 17-77. The Power keeping their very faint finals hopes alive.
And seriously, that was just one of the most awful games to watch because Dwayne was getting just way too excited in the first quarter.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Power won and they beat a top 8 team, yada, 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 but they still didn't look terribly convincing. I didn't think it was a very good game myself, but, you know, a win's a win and Port keep themselves in the hunt, so that's all they can do, I guess. Today we had the Weagles just squeaking in over Carlton. I actually thought Carlton were a very sneaky chance and they nearly did West Coast in today, but Eagles getting up by 7 points, 12 goals, 10.82 to Carlton, 11 goals, 9.75. We had St Kilda snuffing out Melbourne's chances. Melbourne must be a terribly disappointed team this evening. St Kilda 15 goals, 20, 110, 35 scoring shots to Melbourne 11 goals, 8, 74. Saints up by 36 and probably could have won by a lot more had they kicked straight. Melbourne pretty much out of the hunt now, and you would have thought after North falling over on Saturday, it was a game they really had to win, they must be a very disappointed club tonight.
An interesting thing, I think, was 14 years and Melbourne still haven't beaten the Saints.
Just amazing. That's an amazing stat.
That's just ridiculous.
Well, and I think, am I right in saying Melbourne have never won at Etihad?
Once.
Won once. That's ridiculous.
From 28 games, they've won once.
It's just incredible. That a couple of massive monkeys on the back there, but with what was at stake, the Saints are on equal footing with Power now, but their percentage is horrid, so really they're no chance. But Melbourne were right in the hunt if they win this game, and I can see North stumbling. So. Yeah, I'd be heading to the snow if I was a Demons supporter. And then, of course, the Giants having a smashing win over the Lions. The Giants 22 goals, 14, 146 to Brisbane, 9 goals, 13, 67. The Giants giving themselves a nice little percentage booster. That's the second time they've played Brisbane this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Where does that actually put them on the ladder now?
So, very nice segue, Nikki. Let's have a look at the ladder.
You're welcome.
Of course, we'll cover the Crows' scoring game in a minute. But with the Crows winning, we're sitting at second position, equal on points with Western Bulldogs, but about 11% in front of them, so quite safe. Hawthorn obviously on top. They just keep winning those games, and hard to see them dropping top spot now. Certainly top 2 is a lock for them. Then GWS, Sydney, West Coast and Geelong on 44 points. GWS jumping above Sydney on percentage, about 1% above them. Sydney a couple of percentage points above West Coast. Geelong another percentage point behind them. And then rounding out the 8, we've got North Melbourne, who are really, falling over the line. 40 points, 109.7. They now actually have a worse percentage than Port, who are in 9th spot on 32 points. So still 2 games clear, but I tell you what, if the Power get a roll on, I can see North dropping the majority of their games the way they're playing. And you'd almost rather see Port come in on winning form rather than North just falling over the line. But they must be shitting bricks at the moment, the Kangaroos.
Well, I was just having a think last night regarding particularly that Richmond-Essendon game and then a couple of the others now with how that's kind of falling out. These teams which we kind of knew they're bottom half of the 8, they're not realistically going to make the finals. Some, might. But I wonder whether part of the increase in the performances that we've seen, particularly over this weekend and last weekend, is now's the time where you really start thinking of, am I going to have a contract next year?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's because a lot of those teams, they start playing the younger players. We're going to see how it's going because they want to impress, because they want to get in the team regularly. And then you've got the other players around them who are going, holy shit, I don't want to be dropped.
Yeah.
I want to keep playing at this level. So I actually think the latter half of the season really starts, you get those closer games than what you expect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Richmond in particular have probably realised that they went a bit late with a couple of their youngsters. They've brought a couple in who are doing all right. It's a shame it's settled so far out apart from 8th spot, but we've got St Kilda under Port on the same points, but 90%, so they're not going to make it. And then on 28 points, we've got the D's, the Pies and the Tigers. Carlton on 24 points, the Suns on 20, Freo on 12, and then the bottom 2, Brisbane and Essendon, fighting out for the spoon. So, Interesting times in terms of the top 8. We've got the Bulldogs making a play into the top 4. GWS with the most healthy percentage in the top 8, and you would think would be a lock for top 4 now. It's going to be hard for Sydney, I think, and West Coast to break in, and Geelong for that matter. You probably think that the only team on form and with the draw, the only team that really may come out is Western Bulldogs out of the top 4. But I'd say if things go according to form, that top 4 looks almost set now, Nick.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. But for us, we've really got to keep our winning form up and going.
Yeah.
But that's the same for all of the teams.
Yeah, well, absolutely. With it being so close, we saw Sydney, fall from 2nd to 5th, and they could have gone lower. The Cats have fallen right down in the last couple of weeks. So, one loss, one unexpected loss, and you're right back in the pack. So you're right, the Crows do need to keep winning and do need to keep at least... the only match I could see that us dropping on form is next week, and only because it's at Skilled. But aside from that, the only other real danger game for mine is the showdown, particularly if Port are still in with a sniff. So that'll be interesting. But without further ado, let's get on to our game, Nikki. And it was the Crows, a workmanlike performance again, a solid win, 14 goals, 13, 97, up by 28 points over a gallant and hard-working Collingwood Magpies, 10 goals, 9-69. What were your initial thoughts, Nikki?
Well, it was kind of funny sitting there in the last quarter because a lot of people around me were being really negative, and I'm just looking at the scoreboard going, but they've got to kick 4 goals and keep us scoreless. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I never felt like we were in danger, even when it got down to like 9 points or whatever. And it seems to me, this is all, speculation and whatnot, but we're playing as if we've got bigger fish to fry at the moment. I believe that next week's game is going to be an absolute belter. And it seems to me that since the bye, we've been workmanlike, we've been serviceable, and we've done what we've needed to do. And each of the teams that we've played have thrown down challenges at various points during the match. And we've just done enough to keep them at arm's length. And I thought Saturday night's game was a classic example of us we broke the game open very early. And from there on in, it was a fairly even tussle. I don't think we engaged Collingwood as much as we probably could have at the contest, but we certainly did enough to win.
They had a very conscious plan to try and combat the way we play when we're really attacking. So they did quite well to stop a lot of that, the high press and then us running back.
After the first 10 minutes.
After the first 10 minutes, they started to lock it down. They wanted to make it more contested. And, the way I saw it, we just went, okay, we'll play that way. That's fine. We'll move things around a bit differently. Where we were really, the most disappointing part for me was actually our midfielders bringing the ball through the half-forward line. That's where we were breaking down, and there was some bad disposal into our forward 50 from that area. And that's not our forwards. That's actually those midfielders.
Our ball carriers,
not making the best decisions at times.
Before we get too in-depth, let's have a look at some of the stats. Now, team stats, Collingwood actually did us in disposals by about 20, 405 to 386. They went at more handballs than kicks, 201 kicks, 204. We went far more kick-happy, 213 to 173. And, in the conditions, I think that's quite telling. I would have expected us to actually have a higher kick-to-handball ratio. But as it was, we did kick the ball and look to gain field position as much as possible, whereas I think Collingwood at times over-finessed. They were obviously trying to break through our defensive zone on a few occasions.
They were having to handball it around, particularly around contests. Yeah. They were doing lots of quick little handballs, trying to get it out, and we were just pressuring them.
Yep, marks were even. Tackles, they out-tackled it. They killed us in the tackles. And I think that really reflects the level of intensity of the two teams. I felt that Collingwood were really at us, whereas I felt like we were content to sit back. 97 tackles to 65 is an excellent effort by the Pies, and they came in really wanting to give a good account of themselves, and they certainly did in that regard. Frees were even. Conversion was pretty easy, and again, we're very efficient in terms of disposals per goal. We went at 27.5 disposals to their 40, and it's been a real feature of our side, particularly in the last.
That
6
should
or
have been
7
better.
weeks. Oh yeah, absolutely. But as it was, still very efficient, particularly given the conditions. We converted more of our inside 50s as well, 44% versus 33%. So, they beat us in contested possessions. They beat us in uncontested possessions. They had more effective disposals. Their percentage was around about
Shorter
the same.
kicks.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to pick their way through, whereas we were quite happy, I think, to kick longer and get field position, which I think, on reflection, was probably a better strategy under the circumstances. It was quite dewy and quite slippery, and players were struggling to, get a handle on the ball. They outmarked us, but we took 19 marks inside 50. And given that we only had 10 contested marks for the game, we were hitting up targets inside 50. And given that we probably muffed a lot of our inside 50 forays, taking 19 marks inside 50 is a pretty good effort. We won the clearances, although I think that was probably dominated by centre clearances, because I think from memory they beat us around the ground on that stat. And aside from that, nothing much else to say. I think you can read from those stats, Nick. Collingwood played a very high-intensity game. They certainly played with intent, but we probably had a slightly better system. Certainly a better defensive structure, and we looked to gain field position more rather than over-finesse, even though we did over-finesse a little bit at times.
See, Teague actually said that our style of play, we've got to play better. That's not going to win us finals. But I actually think the way Collingwood came at us was very like what's likely to happen during finals. There was that high pressure, and it was from both sides. And I quite enjoyed watching it because of that pressure, in a way that they absorbed some of it from us sometimes, and other times we just harassed the hell out of them. Most of the time we absorbed their pressure and didn't kind of let it phase us too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like... Sorry, go on.
No. You continue that, because the other thing is we said something in the chat that I was going to raise.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question that he does raise. The Sauce v Grundy contest was quite an interesting battle, actually, and Brady Grundy has had a bit of a second wind of late, and I have rated him. I reckon he's a really good young ruckman. Very mobile and very aggressive, and it surprised me that he's been off the boil, but it certainly came. Look, I thought he shaded Sauce. I thought...
No.
Just settle down. Settle down. I thought, my own personal opinion, Victoria, is that he shaded Sauce, but I think Sauce probably stood up when it counted and played a more pivotal role than Grundy, if that makes sense. Had some more.
You can call him Grundy.
Grundy. Just at key moments, I thought Sam did some really good things, but I certainly wouldn't have been disappointed with Grundy's performance if I were a Collingwood supporter.
For me, the reason why I say Sauce beat him was the fact that Grundy was mostly only winning some of those taps was because of the illegal holds he was doing on Sauce almost at every contest, that he should have been called for them. And the fact that he was having to rely on that way to beat Sauce says a lot to me. I was very amused. I think it was about at least 3 times in the centre where Grundy would win the tap, but he tapped it directly to Sauce and Sauce got the clearance.
Yeah.
So... Yeah. as you said, it was the key moments that Sauce is able to really take it up to him and show, okay, yep, you can go with me for part of this, but you can't go with me for the whole game. And him getting forward, the goal assist to Eddie, and then that great where he actually Grundy slipped over, but there was a little bit of some body pressure from the Sauce to make sure that it happened. So that good mark and the goal that he then kicked. And once again, it was his work around the ground. And he did some really good stuff that I don't know whether it was showing up on the replay at all, just to get in the hole and make it hard for Collingwood to go forward.
Yeah, and that's where Sauce has actually been quite key for us in that whole team defence setup. His positioning's been quite good, and I did actually notice that he was actually in the chain as they were coming out of defence more often than usual, and actually providing a spoil or even a mark as they were coming out. I think the biggest knock for me on Grundy's game was that his hitouts weren't to advantage terribly much.
No.
And I think that's borne out in the centre clearance stats where we won quite comfortably. But I don't think that's necessarily Grundy's fault. I think that's a structural issue. But the kid's still young, and I think he's one of the more promising ruckmen in the competition, to be perfectly honest. As a mobile ruckman, with his aggression and his attack on the ball, give him a couple more years of maturity, and I think he's going to be a bit of a standout. So interesting tussle. Let's just go through some of the individual stats. Bradley Crouch, 29 touches, 11 kicks, 18 handballs, 10 tackles as well. 5 inside 50s. I thought he had a really good game. His disposal efficiency was a little bit down, but he had 16 contested possessions. And I thought it's the best game that Brad's played for us for quite some time.
Yep. And that bit in the second quarter where he just kind of kept evading Collingwood players was just a thing of beauty.
Yep. Look, I think that's probably the thing that I noticed most about Brad's game this week is his peripheral vision continues to improve, and he seems to be lighter on his feet. He doesn't seem to be running around with lead weights on his feet. So a bit of run in the legs, a little bit more attuned to the pace of the game. And I thought his ball handling was quite good, considering some of our players were a little bit lost in the slippery conditions. Sloaney, 27 touches, 8 tackles, 2 inside 50s. I thought Sloaney was serviceable. I thought Greenwood did a pretty good job of blanketing him. But Rory still got 16 contested possessions, 8 clearances. So, still did his job.
Had... 2 marks in the forward 50?
2 marks in forward 50. One he dished off to Hendo, and one was a shocker.
Yeah.
And speaking of Hendo, credit where it's due. I thought Hendo played it right, apart from that one turnover, and he wasn't an orphan in that regard. 27...
No, there were 2.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, there was one turnover, and I think one where he kind of didn't go where he probably should have. But still, 27 touches, 13 kicks, 14 handballs. He was playing that distributor out of defence a fair bit. I felt like, there's a big donut next to the tackle count for him, but that's what you expect from Hendo. But still had 11 contested possessions and 4 rebound 50s. So not a bad game from Ricky.
He did actually at one stage. There was Hardigan, and I'm trying to remember which of the Collingwood players it was actually running towards him, and he was coming towards the ball, and he didn't stop, and he actually marked it. They didn't quite get to him, but that's other times where we would have seen him before that he'd pull out, would kind of stop or hesitate just that little bit and allow the ball to bounce instead of taking it. So that was pleasing to watch. I think the reason why he actually played quite well was that with it being such a contested game, he couldn't stop and go back and not make decisions. He just had to make the decision then and there and get rid of it, because otherwise he was going to get poleaxed.
Yeah, well, I was actually saying too, with regards to that running back thing, there are certain games at certain times in games where you just know that if you pull out, you're never going to play Aussie rules football again. And I think
Yeah.
the moment that you described there was one of those moments where Hendo, if he'd have shirked that one, he would have never pulled on the Guernsey again. But credit where it's due. I mean, we needed someone to be able to be that distributor with Lairdy out, and I thought, whilst Ricky doesn't give us the defensive aspect that Rory Laird does, he certainly proved his worth, or did his job in terms of distributing the ball out of our back half. I actually really liked Daniel Talia's game. It hasn't featured hugely, but I actually thought Tales did really well. Only the 17 disposals, 8 and 9, but he took 8 grabs, most of those intercept grabs. I actually think his game was underrated by the commentators.
I had him up as probably one of our best. I'm not sure whether he's the best, but he's one or two, in my opinion, just being there and watching that game. He was controlling that back line. He wasn't always on Cloak. He was sometimes on Moore.
Yep.
I think at one stage he kind of took Jesse White and then got rid of him because he's not worth his time. Handed him off to Lever. But he was controlling that back line and was just getting in the way and making life hell. But to me, I actually thought that was one of the best games he's played.
Yeah, both Tails and I thought Jakey Lever a similar role. And I thought that was probably Jake's most composed game for a while, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's been a little bit off the boil, but whilst his disposal count wasn't high, I felt like he was back to his composed best. 10 effective disposals. What did he have? 12 overall, 3 marks. Actually surprised. I thought he took a couple more than that, but he certainly was prominent across half back there, and I thought both Daniel and Jake played well. I actually thought Hardigan played well too. He's turned into a bit of a rock down in that last line, and I really like that. And much more confidence in his ability to distribute the ball as well, so I thought Kyle played pretty well. Aside from that, most other players kind of in and out. Oh, Tommy Lynch. Oh, sorry, there's a couple more. Tommy Lynch, I thought, worked really hard. 21 disposals, but just kept going up and back, up and back, up and back. And you'd hate to line up on Tommy Lynch, wouldn't you? Like, he just does not stop. And 13 contested possessions too from Lynchy, going at 76% disposal efficiency. So I thought he was really key. The other one, briefly, is Jared Lyons. I actually am really starting to like the role that Jared Lyons is playing at the moment. And it's very interesting because he's been a bit in and under until the last couple of weeks. And you and I have talked about this. He's becoming a midfield distributor, and he went at 18 kicks, 3 handballs. And let's just have a look at his disposal efficiency. Nearly 67%. Now, given that he kicked the ball 18 times in a contested situations on a slippery night, that's actually not too bad. I liked his game.
And the thing is that he then ended up, I think, was his last goal that he kicked was when he was actually put in the forward line, because Douglas had actually worked into the game quite well, and so just to create that bit of a mix-up in the middle, we put Douglas back into the centre. So you're putting Lyons back in the forward line. We know he knows where the goals are.
Yeah. Look,
and he's quite effective in there as well.
18 kicks, 5 marks, 2 goals, 7 tackles, 5 inside 50s. You can't ask for more than that. 4 clearances.
No.
You can't ask for more than that. And he's actually now become an integral part of our midfield rotation. And I actually would not like to see him go down at the moment, because out of all our midfielders, he's the one that can hit a bloke up probably more often than not. Really liking his game at the moment.
And I'd have to say I was quite interested in what we were doing with the wings. I thought Atkins played quite, even though, he was a bit in and out as well, like you said. But that was the type of game it was.
Yep.
But when he needed to step up, he did. I like the fact that our wingers are often that last one in the goal square.
Yep.
And I know there was, I think, I'm trying to remember who kicked the goal, and Atkins was back. But he was doing the right thing. He actually ran back to be that, to try and stop the little dribble or whatever. And then when he realised he was kicking up, then he's come forward to try and pressure. But that mark he took where he came streaming out to mark it and go off was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I noticed that, so we had McKay actually on side bottom. So whenever side bottom was on the wing, that's when McKay was on him. And he didn't do a lot. And when Pendlebury went
side bottom.
Yeah. And when Pendlebury went on the wing, Smith moved up to cover him. Yeah. So Seedsman, when he was coming on, was going to the back lines. He wasn't going to the wings.
No, Seeds did play deeper. I noticed that as well. I wasn't terribly enamoured with Seeds' game, but I thought what he did well. He just didn't seem terribly involved. I thought DMAC had a shocker, without bagging the guy too much. He only went at 50% disposal efficiency. And from a bloke who's only getting it, 18 times, he needs to do a little bit better than that. And I just felt like he seemed panicked, David. And so the pressure of the game, I think, really got to him. And I think that's a real concern coming into the finals. You don't want a bloke who loses his composure under pressure. And I felt like David did that continually on Saturday night.
And the other one was people talk about our forward line. Tex was a little bit slow after the second quarter because he did get a bit of a whack in the goalies. And it was very amusing that as soon as he managed to finally compose himself and was able to jog again, he was straight after a certain ponytailed defender.
Tosser.
And he was kind of into him he wasn't letting it slide for the rest of the game.
Yeah, we need a little bit more from Tex.
That's kind of going to slow you down, though.
Well, it will for a while, but he still only had the 10 touches, 8 kicks, 2 handballs, only the 4 marks. You want more from Tex. It wasn't a great game from him.
He was actually free. He'd made some nice little leads up forward and was ignored, and he was quite rightly yelling at the midfield that it wasn't good enough. Yeah.
The other bloke I thought had a reasonably good return to form was Brodie Smith. I felt like his game was solid. 23 touches, 8 marks, 6 inside 50. So obviously that's the role that we want him to be playing, pumping that ball inside 50. And he went at 78% disposal effectiveness as well, efficiency, I should say. And he also had 6 rebound 50s.
He was let down by his left leg finally.
Yeah.
So this was his 4th left leg kick, and it was the first one that wasn't effective.
Yeah, well, we'll probably let him off. But look, aside from that, Chaney was solid. Betts was in and out. Cameron and McGovern quiet again. Slight concerns over them, I think. Although I think teams
you look at Texas numbers as well. Our forward line was generally down.
Yeah, but it was a night for Charlie. It was a night made for Charlie. The ball was on the deck quite often, and I felt like he was seagulling a bit. I felt like he was around the packs. But having said that, I've noticed over the last couple of weeks that teams are putting a hell of a lot more time into Charlie Cameron. Certainly offensively, that run off the halfback lineup bounces, that's gone because he's just getting blocked. But I just feel that he needs to involve more often. And as far as Mitchy McGovern's concerned, I think we've been saying this for a little while now. He needs to just be more involved as well. What he does quite well, and he took his trademark goal line mark for the evening and managed to kick it. But you'd like to see Mitch get a little bit more involved. But what made it, that's probably covers the individual stats. What made it difficult for our forwards, I think, is that Collingwood were very much playing man on man.
And extras.
Yeah, and getting back quite hard.
Backlines.
Absolutely. In fact, they were playing a style not dissimilar to what we were playing early in the season, where they were really rebounding off half-back. They just didn't have the class to be able to move the ball cleanly and quickly through the midfield and getting it up forward. They didn't really have the targets. Cloak was only effective when he was way outside 50. Darcy Moore didn't do a hell of a lot, and Jesse White was Jesse White. So they didn't have a lot, and because they didn't have much in the way of small forwards, for Solo it would have been a perfect night for him. But without him, they really didn't have any ground presence there, and I just felt like Buckley's strategy was good, but I don't think they had the class to execute it effectively.
And also, we weren't getting sucked up. So whilst they were stacking that backlines, we stayed out. So a couple of times when they did get that break, they didn't pan the camera forward, but they did make the comment from the commentators that they've got nothing to kick to because there's 3 Crows defenders in covering across the ground. It's like, we're going to kick it, we're going to get it.
Yep. It was interesting. I was reading Ashley Porter's coverage of the game in The Age, and he noted that Adelaide were very good at getting up to 16 players back in defence, and I felt that was a bit of a misread because our team defensive structures is very much centred around not so much getting numbers back, but covering space on the turnover.
Covering space.
And I don't know, I lost count of how many times they would pump the ball into their forward lines, and it'd be a one-out contest, but we would always have the first or the second bloke, the next 1 or 2 blokes there to mop up. And that's been something I've noticed has been a slight change from us over the last 4 to 6 matches, that we're not getting done as much on the break because we are hanging back. And as you rightly point out, our defenders don't get sucked up too hard. We tend to hold a line reasonably conservatively, and when teams do break out of that defensive 50, they've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, Talia was really making sure that everybody was where they needed to be.
So, there's not a great deal more to say about the game. Obviously, Tomo's 300th, so it was good to get a win for him. I thought he was serviceable without being dominant, obviously. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Tomo now that they've got him to 300. I think he's obviously still got a role to play this season. But certainly, he obviously wants to go on. I don't think the club will be averse to that, but I do think they may change his role. But another game where I felt like, it's not that we played bruise-free, but I didn't feel like we were crushing and bashing as much as Collingwood were, and I think we didn't really have the appetite for that. I felt like we played like we felt we didn't need to do that to win.
No, for me, what it was is that we were still hitting in hard, but we're doing that weight to make sure we're not giving away those high frees.
Yeah.
So while some might see that we're not initially going in hard, we still then hit them, and with quite a bit of intent. But it's the making sure that we're getting them as legally as possible, and we're just getting in their face. Damp Squibs just said that Collingwood showing no respect for Tomo after the game. To be fair, they all actually milled around and they were waiting. I think they had actually got told to lead because Tomo got interviewed by Channel 7, then he got interviewed at the ground, then we go out and give the balls. They stood there, it
was getting bloody cold, and they've got a recovery to do.
They've got a recovery to do. I'm pretty sure that all of them actually got over to him as well.
Yeah.
Straight away, and it was nice to see. I think it was Taylor Adams at the start of the game actually patted him on the shoulder and gave him a little handshake, and you could see, so, congratulations. And that was before the game. Yeah. So I have no problems with it because of what happens now after the game, because of your fan engagement, etc.
Yeah. No, look, I don't have a problem with it.
Benny Hart was out there late. He waited for Tomo to finish all his media thing, and then he went and had a sort of quiet word, and that was really lovely to see.
Yeah.
So from one of our 300 gamers to another.
Yeah, no, look, I didn't have a problem with Collingwood going off. I like you, I felt like it was dragging on for ages, and they got to get in, do their recovery. They got to travel. They got a game next week,
And it was cold.
Yeah, it was bloody freezing. So no problems at all. I guess as a final word, the only thing that I'm concerned about is our midfield output. I feel like our midfield is just going at the moment. I don't feel like we're in a position to dominate games from the midfield. And whilst our game plan probably isn't necessarily structured around midfield dominance anymore, I've just felt like it's taken a while for our midfielders to get into the swing of things. How did you see that, Nick?
It was very interesting because what you didn't comment on was Matt Crouch's 24 possessions. They were doing everything possible to keep him away from the ball. And they were into him, lying on the ground to stop him, get him up and going after. He's still got 24 possessions. And that's why we changed the second half. We pretty much changed it up, and he didn't spend a lot of time on the ground because we could see that's what they were doing, and we couldn't take advantage of it, so we mixed it up a little bit. So, yeah, I still wasn't that worried about it. But I can see that, yeah, it's you only play to what you've got in front of you in a way.
Yeah, I just there's been we've had Melbourne, who have a reasonably strong midfield. Carlton have a pretty decent Collingwood have a pretty decent midfield, to be honest. And I felt like against both of those teams, we've just taken a while to get the hunger. Whereas against West Coast, particularly in the second half, we absolutely mauled them in the midfield in the second half of that game. Against teams like Hawthorn, Geelong, Sydney, even the Bulldogs for that matter, GWS, if our midfield don't come to play, we're going to find ourselves in trouble very quickly because we're not going to have enough time to be able to, set our defensive zones. So I just want to see blokes like Tomo and Richie Douglas, and to a lesser degree, blokes like Brody and Seed and Rory Atkins and those blokes just start up a little bit earlier rather than just hanging back. That's my take anyway. That's what I was just left thinking, come on boys,
Yeah.
wake up. You're not, the intensity level wasn't quite there. Certainly their ability to break free from packs was far better than us. Our tackling, I thought, was poor against Collingwood. I felt like they were able to brush tackles, whereas they tend to stick theirs much better. So, yeah, I'm probably worried about intensity levels more than anything else, and I'm just hoping that they've had a nice little rest now because we need our midfield firing against Geelong if we're to cause a minor upset down there at the Cattery.
Yeah. To me, it's what's in front of you kind of dictates sometimes a little bit as to how you're going to play and where the intensity kind of gets at. It's not good, I agree, with your point that we should be trying to dictate it instead of being dictated to by. But Collingwood's midfield is pretty decent.
Yep, I would say probably one rung below Danger and Selwood and co. But still, pretty solid. I thought Crisp and the other lad, Adams, did pretty well.
Adam Trelaw and Adams.
That's right. Yeah. Did pretty well.
And they're quick.
And Pendlebury, when he rolled through there, was pretty silky as well as he always is. Look, it's the only area of our team that I'm a little concerned about, and it's probably just because we lack a little bit of class. And teams know to sit on Rory, which means that we need more from the others. And Rory's our only inside-outside mid. Brad Crouch is certainly getting there, But then you've got...
But as you said, Lyons is starting to develop that.
Yep, but he's now almost an outside mid. He certainly has been the last couple of weeks. We just, but he lacks pace, Nick. So I think we need our
Rory's not quick.
No, but he's quicker than Jared Lyons.
He's not.
I'm quicker than Jared Lyons. No, seriously, I am.
Actually, I don't know.
He's not. Lyons is all right once he gets ahead of steam up, but he does get caught with it a bit, and he takes a while to get going.
The one in the forward line where he got done for holding ball, that was the first time somebody's actually caught him, and he's been done for holding the ball. Most of the time, he actually does get the disposal away, and it's pretty effective. So whilst he gets caught, he knows they're coming, he knows where they are, and he still, the vast majority of the time, is able to dispose of it effectively.
Yeah. So I think the other guy that's going to need to step up next week is Charlie Cameron. I think if we're going to roll him through the mids, he needs more input. And certainly the other thing that I felt we lacked against Collingwood was defensive pressure in our forward 50. I felt like they got the ball out too easily on occasion, and that's Charlie's forte and Eddie's to a lesser degree, and also Mitchy McGovern. And I felt like we lacked a little bit of intensity defending the outlet from our forward 50. So they're going to need to pick that up because, Geelong will get you on the rebound just as hard. So they're probably the two areas where I've felt over the last couple of weeks we've just been off the ball somewhat.
Yep, fair enough.
Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right. So we've got the SANFL game before we finish up. And, of course, we were playing the Bays down there at Gladderall Stadium, and goodness me, the Bays got up. 15 goals, 11-101 to 12 goals, 10-82. Looks like on the back of a bit of a third quarter fade out from us. 5 goals, 4 to 1 goal, 1 in the third quarter, Glenelg. In fact, they kicked 11 goals, 5 in quarter 2, quarter 3 to 5 goals, 5. So after a good solid start from the Crows twos, we fell in a hole through the middle of the match and then couldn't peg them back. So they ended up winning by, 19 points. The usual suspects.
I'll be interested to know when Luke Carey went down with his ankle injury, because I know the report said it was in the third quarter. So if that was early on, that might account for some issues down back.
Possibly. Hadn't had a lot of it, 6 touches up until then.
No, but he stops a lot.
Yeah. Look, the usual suspects, Ellis Yeoman, 32, Griggy, 28, Harry Wigg, 27. Who's T. Heffernan?
Troy Heffernan. Yep, he's one of the ring-ins. He's quite nice.
Ring-in, 21. Jake Kelly, 20. Not a bad return. Kirtley Hampton, 19. Beach, 19. Doody, 18. Dode, yeah. Actually, that Heffernan's had a nice game. 21 disposals, 10 marks, 3 tackles.
We've
3 inside
got
50s,
some nice
5
top-up
rebound 50s. Yeah, nice game from him.
Yeah, him, Sean Makers, Mins, and of course Carey down back. They're coming in and they're at the level of these other SANFL players that we're playing against.
Yeah. The disappointing ones, as Vardy Magic actually points out in the chat, Wayne Miller only the 11 disposals, 7 kicks, 4 handballs, 2 marks, 5 tackles.
But apparently goal of the year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the first goal of the game, takes it in the centre, a couple of running bounces.
Yeah, and he's young, but he should be getting more than 11 touches.
Yeah, as I said, for me, the concern with him is that he's not in the contest the whole game.
That's right. He does seagull a bit too. That's his
youth. Yeah, and that's his youth showing through a little bit.
I'll tell you what, Nick, it's almost time to give Harry Wigg a run in the ones, I reckon. He's had 17 and 10. He's had 6 marks, 5 tackles, 4 frees forward, 2 clearances, 2 inside 50s, 2 rebound 50s. He's almost worth a crack.
Yeah. But who comes out
D-Mac.
from that midfield? You reckon D-Mac? Put him on the wing?
Out. Yep.
So see, the thing is we don't play Wig on the wing. We play him in the guts in the SANFL side.
Yeah, but it's all transferable these days. I reckon. I reckon he's got enough pace about him to play a wing role.
He does.
He'd certainly offer us more offensively, I think, than D-Mac, and probably more defensively as well, having played a bit in defence last year. I reckon it's time. If not now, then never for Harry Wigg this year, in my opinion. It may not be against the Cats this week. But I wouldn't mind seeing him get a run against Brisbane or a team like that before the end of the season, just to see how he's going.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't be surprised if McKay goes out and Laird comes in.
Well, you would think. Laird comes in for McKay. You would think that Brown comes in for Henderson when Brown's right. I don't think Easman comes out.
Back.
Yeah. I don't think Seed comes out. I think he was playing a slightly unfamiliar role on Saturday night, so I think he stays in.
He was. The interesting thing for me is that I remember when it was first announced that he was being traded to us, and we asked the question of the Collingwood supporters on Big Footy, what can we expect from him? And a lot of the consensus was that he kind of squibs and he doesn't go in hard. And I don't know who they will watch, but that's a completely different season than who we've got, because he's very willing to tackle and he's very willing to put his body in the line. And it was the complete opposite of the impression that we kind of got given.
Yeah, look, I don't... he's not the strongest in the air, Seedsman, but certainly at ground level he goes in when he needs to go. I haven't really noticed him pull out of much at all.
No, I don't think he has at all.
No, I think he was playing a slightly different role on Saturday night, probably an unfamiliar role due to personnel. You'd probably want him to be a bit further out the ground like Brodie was playing, but we had him playing a little bit differently.
And the thing is, we know there's a big step up from the SANFL to AFL, and he'd played one game in the SANFL. Took him a little bit to get to the pace of the game there, and then he was quite nice.
Mm.
And for me, I'm just watching it going, well, it's really his first game back from a hamstring. It's a freaking cold night. I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway here.
Yeah, no, I think he stays in. Damn Squid's saying that I've jumped the shark saying Brown for Hendo. Well, I'm not sure whether he wants Hendo to keep Brown out of the team, does he? Or what do you want, Damn Squid? Be a bit who
goes out for in the defence?
Yeah.
To get Brown and Laird back in.
And there's a Jay Seller playing for the Bays. Is that Jimmy Seller?
Yes, it is.
10 disposals. Good on you, Jimmy. 6 marks, though. So it's slightly disappointing from the twos. You would have thought that they might have got up over the Bays, but I guess it's Bays home ground, but we're used to playing away. That's what we do.
That's the first time they've beaten us there.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. They haven't been great the last few years, but as you mentioned earlier on to me, Nikki, they are slowly turning it around, and you hope for their sake that they do turn it around a bit. That club's a linchpin of the SANFL, and it'd be a shame if their on-field performances, negatively impacted the challenges that they're having off the field at the moment. I'm a bit concerned about a couple of players in the twos. Dean Gore doesn't seem to be getting enough of it at the moment, only the 9 posies.
Yeah, he's a bit in and out, and he's not quite going in as hard as what we'd seen earlier in the year. So I wonder if he's tiring, because remember, he had a huge injury interrupted season last year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of putting that down to. Because early in the season, he was very hard at it, but he's not so much anymore, and I just don't quite think he's got the tank at the moment.
Harry Deer's the other one. After a nice little breakout a couple of games ago, he's gone back into his shell. Whether that was supply or whatnot, I'm not sure. But in a game where we kicked 12 goals and the Bays kicked 15. It was a nice day on the weekend. You would have thought that Harry Deer would have got more of it. Only the 4 disposals, 2 marks, 1 tackle. Come on, Harry, fire up, mate.
Yeah, without saying, we can't really make a call one way or the other.
No, but you'd just like to see a little bit more, wouldn't you?
A bit more. That's one of the things he said that he's working on, is trying to get his consistency going, because he has been up and down.
Yeah. Now, Squib in the chat reckons Hendo stays and Seedsman and DMAC out. That's almost a bannable comment, really. I mean, Squibby, I enjoy your input on the chat, I really do, and I'd hate to cut you off, but if you're going to come up with that sort of rubbish, we're going to have to rethink. I'm all for free speech, but let's not dip into fantasy land.
To quote from one of my favourite shows, doors in the wall.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you shit, Squibby. It's fine. Look, Hendo did enough to stay in, that's for sure. But I think I'd rather Seedsman in the team than Henderson any day of the week. Next week, Nikki, we got the Cats at the Cattery.
Yeah.
I think Lairdy will be right. I'm not so sure about Luke Brown. Probably a 50-50 with that groin. What's he had 2 out now with the groin? I'd imagine probably 1 more.
They said 1 to 2. They said 1 to 2 was what they anticipated.
Yeah.
And they've been fairly close with most of them. Fairly spot on with what they've been saying. Unlike previous years, they'll say 1 to 2 and then 4 weeks later going, it's still 1 to 2. They've been pretty spot on this year. So I'll wait to see what comes out on Monday.
Yeah, probably Harrison Wigg and the inevitable Cam Ellis-Yeoman, probably the 2 that are pushing for selection in the mids. Jake Kelly had a good game, but I don't think there's a spot for him right now. So you'd imagine that the question is who comes out for Lairdy and Brown. If they're available.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you say, Squibby. It's bloody DMAC and Henderson. Mine. Never mind. We shall see. I think the biggest news, am I right in saying that Bartel had a break last week?
Yes. They didn't want to send him over on the long plane trip because he's old.
Yeah, I really like that. That means we're not up against a 300-game Jimmy Bartel match, because you may as well just not turn up for that one. So I'm really pleased about that. Hampton Squibby had 19 disposals, 10 kicks, 9 handballs. And if you weren't so busy writing trash on the chat, you would have heard me say that before. But I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy to restate it. 4 marks, Squibby, 2 tackles, played all right, 5 inside 50s, which is nice. So anything else you'd like, mate, before we go?
No, the AFC match report actually said he provided some nice run out of the back line, so out of the half back line. So that's basically what we're wanting to see from him. I think if he continues on with what I saw from last week, with how he built into the game, he'll probably be pushing for some selection maybe later in the season as well, or at least putting good pressure on those who are in the team to keep performing, to stay in.
Well, he's a handy little joker in the pack, isn't he? If we do lose a Brodie Smith, you could almost see Kirtley Hampton sneaking in for a Brodie Smith, I reckon. Anyway.
Yeah, and he can play wing and midfield.
Exactly. So, look, massive game next week, Nick. I reckon we're a real chance. I think Geelong are just going. I think down there with all that construction going on, they're not getting massive crowds down there. I think we've actually, since the bye, I reckon this is the one we've set ourselves for.
We owe them.
And we certainly do owe them.
With the way Sydney played them, I was watching that game and I'm going, that's how we play. And they're not liking that pressure, that continual pressure that's on them. They're just not coping because you don't give them space. And the size of Simmons Stadium, I think, actually suits our game plan quite nicely down there.
I agree. And it hasn't in the past. But our game plan has changed sufficiently. I think you're absolutely right. I think it does suit us. And as long as we can acclimatise quickly, get some early scoreboard pressure going, I think we're going to be in with a massive chance and win that game, and we're almost a lock for top 4. And, a very good chance of top 2. And from top 2...
anything can happen.
Well, we're a big show at that point. So... all travelling in the right direction, but we've got to keep on winning, as Pikey says, and can't disagree with him on that one.
Interestingly, it was reported on the board that on the Channel 7 call they interviewed Treloar after the game, and he said, we're the best side in the comp at the moment.
Yeah, I did hear that. You're always a bit wary when opposition players come up with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But
they kind of took it up to us, but you think they beat GWS on their home deck, and they've been pushing teams the past couple of weeks.
Yeah. Look, better to be in the conversation than not in the conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
And, I reckon Collingwood would have walked away from that game feeling as if they gave it everything they had, and the fact that they couldn't get within 5 goals of us probably says a lot about how we're travelling, and that probably prompted his call. Good to be in the conversation. I don't know how to pronounce that. Valus in the chat reckons the only thing that worries him is that we don't really have a tag for Dangerfield. I reckon Selwood's the one to stop. I don't actually,
I just said that in the chat.
Yeah, I don't actually like Danger. He gets a lot of it, and he'll do some mercurial things, and he'll kick you the goal, and he'll take you the mark. But geez, he burns it a lot. Selwood, I think, is actually
Selwood's the one.
Yeah, and Selwood's the easy one to stop. I think he's slightly slower, not as explosive. Still an absolute jet. Who do we put on him?
Douglas.
You put Dougie on him? I don't know.
No, because Dougie actually does that. What you need to do is put somebody on him who burns him the other way as well, and who needs to be strong in that, strong in the body, etc. And that's what the teams that have been beating Geelong often always have that tag on Selwood. So while Sydney also had somebody sitting on Danger, it was mostly they actually really concentrated more on Selwood and stopping that initial give, etc. And Damp Squib says that Danger worries me when he goes forward, though, and he doesn't worry me because he went forward against us on Cheney and Cheney kicked his ass.
Yeah, I actually like Cheney on Danger. He's the right height. And he's very good right one-on-one in the air. Danger doesn't bother. Danger worries me coming out of the mids, kicking forward. He'll burn you pretty quick that way. He doesn't worry me too much up forward. Look, it'll be interesting.
Get the ball first, and then he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
simple as that.
I agree. I'd actually like to see Scotty Thompson beat the hell out of Scott's.
Danger.
No, Selwood.
Selwood, yeah.
Inside, and I'd like to see Dougie run with him around the ground. But I'd like to see Tomo have a job on him at the contest and beat the hell out of him. That's what I'd like to see.
Tomo had a little bit of a down game, as we said. That'll often
big week. Yeah,
he did have a big week, and you can kind of see that it did get to him a little bit, but that was fine. He's had 300 games. He's entitled to having a bad one every now and then, considering how consistent he has been. Yeah. But that's what we did, I think, when we played Sydney, etc. He was key to make sure that we were getting the ball first.
Yep, I reckon he's due a big one this week. And I reckon, as I said before, it's just a personal feeling of mine, but I think we've said ourselves since the break, I think this is the one. And win this one, and we're in really good shape. So, look, I had us pegged for 45 minutes tonight, Nick, and we've gone for 65. So we better shut up.
Yep.
It's been good having you along.
Talk about Tuesday.
Now, Tuesday night, just for those listening who also listen on Tuesday night, we have an interesting interview with an expat Australian, originally from the NT, but spent a lot of time in Adelaide, and he's the current coach of the Austin Crows in Texas. The Austin Crows being the current US AFL champions. So, and, you know, it's actually a really interesting chat. We went for about 40 minutes. He's got some connections back here. He played at Goody Saints. He played for Norwood. Really good chat, and really interesting to see how the AFL is going in terms of an organised comp in the US. So look forward to that one on Tuesday Night Live. In the meantime, obviously, we've got the Crowbar on Monday night if the boys get out of the pub. And
Hi, Weed.
Come on, Weed. And then we've got Scorpus on Thursday night with the preview. So a good week lined up, leading into a really big weekend of footy against the Cats down there. So thanks very much, Nikki, and we'll
no problems.
see you on Tuesday night.
See ya.